can't choose your suffering. You can't choose, how you handle that suffering.
Hello and welcome to another Mental Wealth Moves podcast. I'm your host, Casey Dubravcic, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, owner and operator of Rocked Wellness Bar and Revitalized Ketamine Clinic. And today we have a very special guest for us. We have Mrs. Ashley Shafor. We talk about everything from blended families to relationships and therapy to ketamine treatments, and we also talk about suicidality. We talk about how to move forward, and I think you'll find some really valuable insight and information in here. We're excited to have you.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time today, Ashley. I really appreciate you. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, you look great. So you've been taking care of yourself. I know you've been super busy. Lots of cool stuff happening in your world. We've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
In Flagstaff since forever.
Yeah, small town.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. So tell me like a little bit about like what you're up to right now, what you've been doing, kind of all that fun stuff.
Okay. I'm busy. I'm a mom of 6, 4 biological and 2 step. My husband and I do real estate here in Flagstaff, so that's always a wild ride,
Yeah, there's lots of ebbs and flows to that market.
Yeah. Flagstaff is cool. It's one of those places that is real big with NAU, and so there's always people in and out for college or investment properties, and then it's just a big tourist town, so people invest in Airbnbs as well, and there's an influx of jobs here. Actually, you'd be surprised. We've got Gore and Purina and the hospital, so it does pull in a good amount of people.
Yeah, for sure. I like everything that you just mentioned about why Flagstaff's so cool, right? From both of us going to high school here, like we've seen so many people leave and then come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's like a vortex. I feel like it brings people back.
That boomerang effect.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah. And it's so cool to see like everything that you're doing, like all the hats that you're able to wear and be very successful with.
Thank you.
You've come like and overcame so much, I feel like.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's funny, like when people point it out and it's like, oh yeah, like whatever. But I have been doing a lot of self-reflection, just kind of on the life that I've lived and the multitude of kind of women that I've been throughout my lifetime and the changes in that journey.
Yeah. I love that. Like being able to kind of recreate yourself, and embracing that with the evolution, Yeah, you've done really, really, really wonderfully.
Thank you.
I would say.
Thank you.
Like it's just every time I see you, it seems like you're more like authentic. Like
thanks.
Yeah.
Aw, thank you. I love that. I love that. It's funny because I feel like we, as humans, we aim to be, or most of us aim to be pretty authentic, and you kind of are like, what does that mean to be authentic, and how do you accomplish that? And I feel like for myself, it's just been, just keep your heart open, just be true to you, and just be kind, and wake up every day and just try to do your best. And I feel like that kind of just breeds authenticity.
Yeah, for sure. Like trying to do your best and trying to like carry all the things that you're doing, and it's just really cool to see again that growth that you've and the work that you've put in, right? Because it is work.
It is a lot of work. It really is. It's funny, like that journey of healing or just kind of self-discovery. I don't think people realize how difficult it really is, like today with social media, it's kind of like, oh, rainbows and butterflies, and we're doing all this breath work and this and that, and it's dark. It gets really dark.
Yeah, and then like the keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, where you see this person go to this place or do this for their kids, and then you're like, well, now I feel like I have to do that, and then I got to post about it,
right.
Or, and it's like that can be exhausting. And then when you're able to kind of set that aside and recognize that you don't need to do that, and you probably shouldn't even do that. It's
no, I mean, I think that we all have a different capacity in life, and that's okay. There's some people that I watch and I'm just like, holy shit, like how are they so productive, and how are they managing all of this, and I know people say the same thing to me at times, but our culture breeds burnout.
For sure.
ultimately, you know, it's like we're go, 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 go. And then eventually you hit a wall. And I hit that wall and it is not fun.
Right.
It is not. I've been there. I've experienced burnout.
Yeah. I know. I'll have those days like where I'll just go and go and go, and I'm working on this project, and then I just like hit a wall, and then like 2 days I'm like, you know what? I'm not getting out of bed today.
Yeah. And that's okay. And it's like we're made to feel that we can't rest, you know, and that's not how our bodies operate. I mean, as the seasons change, things slow down, and we do, and you know, nature rests.
Right.
We should rest.
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah.
Like I wish, you know, I guess I could just start doing it, so I shouldn't have to wish. Everybody's dad. He said it like very succinctly. He's like, try this, Casey. Poop in one hand and wish in the other hand. See which one fills up.
My grandpa used to always say that. That's funny that you referenced that.
That's so right.
Oh yeah.
I was cynic, but just being able to embrace that seasonality. Like I feel like we should work like 3 or 4 hour days on the winter, you know, and like then the summer and spring and fall be more productive.
Right.
Like,
as a business owner, that's really impossible though.
Right.
You know, how do you find that balance?
Yeah. You gotta
really
like
difficult.
Hone your strengths and farm out your weaknesses, right? Like being able to, I think, understand which hat, what you got to wear it, and what do you got to do with that, while also recognizing that that's not going to be your forte, and it's probably not the best way to spend your time or your effort.
Yeah.
If you aren't interested in it, for one.
For sure.
Yeah. So the real estate's going pretty well right now.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, obviously the slow season is kind of coming with the holidays and winter. People aren't really buying or selling homes as rapidly. So this is, you know, kind of our rest time to just reevaluate and set up systems that work for us. And then, you know, spring and summer hit and it just gets crazy.
Right. Yeah. That's gotta be hard to navigate, like taking the kids places and be like, oh, I gotta schedule a showing and do all those things.
It's a constant juggling.
It's nice to get a little reprieve during the holidays and like be able to, like I saw your Thanksgiving looked like it was happy family.
Yeah.
It was like wonderful times together.
Just good time just to kind of enjoy each other. I feel like, you know, a lot of times it's really hard to just be in the present. So.
Yeah, right. That's the trick, right? It's like, I think one of my friends said it, like, if you're living in the past, you're living in largely like depression, like the shoulda, woulda, coulda, didn't, does. And then you're living in the future, you know, it's like that anxiety, like more of that, like, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's like no one knows. You can plan for the future, but the only moment we really have is right now.
Totally.
And so just trying to make the most out of it. And you seem like you're doing a good job of that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
What do you do to take care of yourself, Ashley?
You know, my biggest thing is really, I mean, sleep. Sleep is really important. I do prioritize my sleep. I actually wear this cool little Whoop watch.
Oh, nice. I've heard of those.
And so it tracks my sleep, my recovery, and my strain. So just kind of
strain?
Yeah, like how much you're exerting yourself throughout the day.
Cool.
It kind of monitors your stress, your activity. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. This thing wants to talk to me. That's fun.
And then therapy has been huge for me, just for like my mental health. I do therapy a couple times a month, and exercise. Those are, you know, and just dietary, making sure that I'm eating pretty clean and consistently. I think, you know, a lot of people's blood sugar is kind of out of whack and causes a lot of compounding issues with their health.
Yeah, heart rate variability, you know, a really good indicator of health, and then your blood sugar modulation. And you know, it's so hard to take care of your blood sugar these days with how ubiquitous the like densely caloric and heavily processed foods are. Like that's really hard to navigate with kids, you know, because it's like I'm a big of the school of thought, everything in moderation, including moderation. You know, it's like nothing's inherently evil. The dose makes the medicine, the dose makes the poison, kind of things. And that being said, we know some things are not great for us. Like, how do you navigate that with your kids?
That's a tough one, especially because I have teenagers and then I have toddlers, and so, you know, the teenagers are kind of.
Your kids are so cute, by the way.
Thank you. I like to think they're like the cutest kids ever, but you know, thank you. But it's tough. I mean, there's so much junk, and then always being on the go. Sometimes it's easier, like, oh, I'm just gonna grab this or this. So we really try to avoid fast food. That's like a big no unless like there's no other option. So meal prep is big. I was trying to buy like any organic snacks that I could, but with the way that things are anymore, like a lot of big companies are getting bought out that we all thought were good and healthy and natural. So it's just sticking to whole foods, you know, like fresh fruits, nuts, protein, just really natural as possible.
Yeah.
Is key.
Right. Yeah, I call it the SAD diet, the standard American diet. Right? We know all the like densely caloric foods, all the heavily processed foods. We know they increase inflammation, they increase depression, they increase anxiety, and they decrease focus and attention, and also significantly reduce lifespan and quality of life. And so my always guidance is like shop the periphery of the grocery store for the most part. Fresh fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, non-refined carbohydrates. There is something that came out pretty recently. I don't know if you heard it. Is like a lot of the things that we think are healthy as far as like the fresh fruits and vegetables, they lose a ton of their nutrient density in transit. And and so like now I'm saying, you know, honestly, probably some of the healthier foods is if you can buy the organic flash frozen. And so
and it's funny you say that, because even like blueberries, there's something that happens in the makeup of the blueberry when they're frozen that they're actually more beneficial for you when they're raw or fresh even. So
no, it's interesting. It's always we're always learning, right? We're all works in progress. So you're doing therapy a few times a month, like individual therapy then?
Individual and couples therapy. I think all couples should do couples therapy. If you're not growing together, you're not gonna last.
Because we're all evolving. I think that's where a lot of couples get stuck, is one person moves forward and the other person is like holding on to old patterns that weren't necessarily, you know, hugely beneficial, and the other person potentially recognized some of how that pattern wasn't beneficial, and they're, you know, so embracing that together is huge. Good job. I'm happy for you guys.
Well, I mean, we both were older, you know, this is not our first marriage, so it's like you've got baggage, you have other stuff just from your life together, and then trying to bring two whole families together, it's a lot. So there's just a lot of pressure, and I think having a healthy outlet and just a healthy toolbox is really key.
Absolutely. There's so many cool things going on, particularly in psychiatry. I think in modern medicine in general, really exciting stuff. Like one modality that a lot of people are looking into is like couples MDMA therapy. And so like we do the ketamine treatments, and I don't know if you want to speak to the ketamine treatments at all.
I would love to, actually. I mean, I have struggled with depression for as long as I can remember. I didn't have the easiest life. I had kind of a plethora of trauma from a young age, and I don't think I really grasped, you know, what I was dealing with or what was going on. And eventually I was diagnosed with PTSD, which was life-changing to kind of have an answer as to why I was feeling the way I was and what I was experiencing. And I did my first ketamine therapy here at Rocked. Revitalized. But and I was in a position where I had just had twins. One of them was born with some pretty big health issues. I had moved, sold my house. It was just like compounding stress. My oldest son was just off the rails, and I was still breastfeeding. And I was like, you know, what do I do? I was suffering from massive postpartum depression. And then I started to hear about this ketamine therapy, and I was like, okay, you know, what is this? What can I do? I talked to you, and you were like, yeah, it's totally safe for breastfeeding. There was some parameters I had to follow, but I came in and I did a series of 6 sessions, and it saved my life. It pulled me, it pulled me out of one of the darkest places I had been, you know, being a mom again, feeling isolated, just the hormone changes, all of the stress I was experiencing. And I was just kind of in freeze mode, like I wasn't living. And doing the ketamine was able to give me just a whole different perspective on so many things that were challenging me at that point in time. And it just kind of was that boost that I needed to kind of pull me back out of like that funk that I was in.
Oh, I
So
love
eternally
that.
grateful.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
yes.
beautiful. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
sharing that.
yeah.
It's like, the chills like 3 times while you're talking. I'm like, ah, I love it. Yeah, traditional medicine. You know, I've been in healthcare since 2004, and you know, I think of all the medications that I ever prescribe in traditional psychiatry. I mean, first of all, we're just treating symptoms.
Right.
You know, and it's like SSRIs, SNRIs, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, hypnotics.
Yeah.
We think of mood super basically as that waveform, right?
Yep.
Like that depression, anhedonia, like the I don't care is down here. Then anxiety, hypervigilance, that kind of pucker state up here. People with trauma, they bounce back and forth a lot quicker between the two, always to protect themselves, you know? And so like everything else, when it did work, like 10 to 30% effective long term, we're just kind of squishing that waveform. And then, so like you hit on the 2 most important things, I think, like name it to tame it. And so like getting that PTSD diagnosis, like that means I don't like PTSD as a diagnosis because the post-traumatic stress disorder, it makes people feel broken, right? It makes people feel unhealable. So like PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury, right? And there's those big capital bold T's, those really gnarly ones that you're exposed to, and little italic ones where, you know, there's like those micro traumas that all add up, right? And then they help us develop those coping strategies of depression, kind of that withdrawal to get away from everybody and everything, or that anxiety, that hypervigilance where, you know, every plate is potentially hot, and so you treat them all as such.
And you know, you see an influx of people that are self-medicating because they can't regulate their emotion, they can't handle what's going on inside. And I went through a bout with that even, you know, years ago, and just I've been on different medications, which I hate. You know, I'm not a big proponent for that. I like to be as natural as possible. I think, you know, getting the PTSD diagnosis was good, which is totally healable, you know, and that's what people freak, because they're like, what? Like, I have this thing, but it's like, no, you can heal, and you can thrive, really. It's not anything to be afraid of. But the traditional psychiatric medication, I'm just not a fan of, because I think people get on it expecting it to fix them, and then they're not getting at the root problem.
100%. And then, you know, in some ways, like those symptoms, like the depression, the anxiety, the suicidality, the self-medicating with food or alcohol, like, in my opinion, those are your psyche's cries for help, right? And so, like, if we're just turning the volume knob down on those cries for help without giving that space to treat the root problems, then, you know, we're doing a disservice in large part. So if we aren't using whatever we're using as like a catalyst for change, like, you know, I don't think anything's inherently bad. Like, again, the dose makes medicine, dose makes poison. So like some people having that just a little bit of Lexapro or whatever, that'll help them get out of bed, and that'll help them, you know, go to the therapist, that'll help them get to the gym. And then I'm the school of thought, like you, like less is more, you know, like with the ketamine, we've seen a lot of people be able to be deprescribed, get off of meds, you know, because actually treating the root problem.
Totally. I mean, there's been times where it's like, all right, I just needed a little boost. I've taken Wellbutrin, you know, I actually had a blood test done that was able to show me, you know, like what psychiatric medications worked for me and what didn't. And I had been prescribed SSRIs prior, and it was like, that was a big no-no on my blood tests.
Oh yeah.
So
the gene site
those
testing
don't work for me.
No, it's cool to see, like, you know, your genetic predisposition. And so, like, being able to get a little bit more, and that's, you know, that's why it's so exciting to be in modern medicine, I feel like, because we're proving a bunch of past wisdom with science, where a lot of that was like segregated. They're like, this is the physical, and this is the mental, and this is the spiritual, and it's like, like those need to go together.
Yeah, it's all intertwined. It really is. So I mean, the biggest, and also like hormone testing was big for me, you know, just making sure that my body is optimized. I think, you know, we all are so like, oh, we have to look good, like the outside, like let's buy the nice clothes, let's get this, let's get that. But really, you're not going to be your best person unless everything internally is aligned.
Absolutely.
So I mean, blood testing is huge. If people can do it, I highly recommend that. Yeah,
for sure. And you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so then if you dive into those things and you're like way out of whack on something, like getting those quick wins is so helpful. You know, to like be able to like feel safe to feel safe. You know, and so I think that's where a lot of people come to us. And they're, you know, it's in that pucker state, that like, you know, fight, flight, or freeze, or actually 7 Fs, like fawn, and, you know, all these other ones, like, that are basically, again, you're trying to protect yourself, and biologically, they're super helpful at the right time, you know, and then recognizing those as coping strategies, I think, can be so helpful. because that's where people get in trouble, I think, is where they judge the coping strategy,
Right.
you know, and like, you're like, okay, this, like, again, I tell people when I first see them, no regrets, right?
Yeah.
Not even one
Yeah,
letter.
right.
Because everything you did got you here.
Yeah.
And then where people get in trouble is they start judging that, you know, substance use, Casey, or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
like the version of yourself that used that coping strategy to get where you're at.
Right. And then you feel shame, and then it's a whole other spiral of
Right.
stuff that's not fun,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's exhausting.
No, and I
Yeah.
think we're our own worst critics. We, you know, we tend to
100%.
talk not very nicely to ourselves and pick ourselves apart. And I think reframing the way that you speak to yourself and just the way that you kind of process things has been big. I know that's been big for me, like the CBT and DBT.
Yeah.
Just kind of reprocessing your thoughts has been a really big help.
Absolutely.
For me too, because
Yeah.
man, that monkey mind, I like to call it the monkey mind.
100%.
It gets going and you're like, shut up.
Right.
So it's just really, that's what ketamine helped me too. There was one session where it really like visually helped me to kind of separate the mind from the monkey mind. And just be
beautiful.
aware of it, because I think we get so wrapped up like in these thought patterns, and they're not even us. It's not our thought pattern, you know.
Right.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, like yeah. It's just like we're a composition of our environment, right?
Yeah.
And you're a combination of 5 people you spend the most time with. Like DBT teaches that, you know, like we learn emotional regulation skills, how to handle difficult people, difficult situations, and difficult emotions, pretty much exclusively from our parents from ages 0 to 11.
Yeah.
You know, then peers 12 to 19, and then romantic relationships 19 and up.
Yeah.
And so if our parents weren't taught those skills, they can't be expected to be able to, you know, teach those to us.
No. No, not at all. And I think, you know, just as time's progressed, and I feel like our kind of generation is doing a lot of really deep wound healing, you know, which hopefully will benefit our children and so forth. But
absolutely,
yeah,
I see that too. There's so many microcosms of growth and like people figuring it out and letting go of those, you know, less positive coping strategies. You know, that's what, you know, kind of Rocked is born out of, like a wellness bar. Like we're all a composition of 5 people we spend the most time with. So be around people who are, you know, mostly sober and trying to be taking care of themselves. At least they're not numbing out with substances, right?
Yeah.
And so we're gonna do, you know, sober dance, and we're doing like Flow Fridays and hanging out in the social sauna and like talking shop and entrepreneurial
It's amazing.
stuff.
It is just so amazing what you're doing here. You know, my background, I had that holistic skincare company, and we did sound healing and energy work, and my dream was to, you know, have something like this one day. So I think it's really wonderful that you're kind of showing people, you know, this can be normal. This is normal. I think we're inundated with, you know, drink this, smoke this, do this, you know, alter your reality. But it's like ultimately when we're optimized and we're in a good place and we have community and we're doing things that are healthy for our bodies, like we're gonna thrive. So,
I love that.
It's awesome.
You said optimize, because you know, that's the name. Revitalize, like that's where everyone needs to start, because they need to feel safe, and then optimize, like build those strategies and environment to be more conducive to you being successful, right? And then harmonize is like how you keep that trajectory going, you know, and then the clinic and therapeutic, so we can call it Rocked and Rocktopus and get rock tails and all that fun stuff.
I love that.
Lots of things in the name, right?
I love that. No, I think it's a good environment for people. You know, this new mocktail sober wave, I think, is really incredible. We've all been kind of pushed to like, oh yeah, you should drink, you know, it's the social thing to do. It's normal, but I mean, it's poison. Let's get real.
It really
like
is.
It's not doing you any good.
We've got the functional mushroom, you know, elixirs and nootropics, and you know, they're trying, because like so many people don't even know, you know, wellness is such a ubiquitous term, right? They're like, and wellness for one person might be continuing to go to fast food and just not supersizing, right? Wellness for another person might be like next level biohacking, you know, a minute and a half in the, you know, the cold plunge, and then 50 minutes in the sauna, and then, you know, the hug flower, and then like checking their lab tests. And so it's like really trying to meet people where they're at, you know?
And it's a process, you know, like you have to be kind of open and ready and just willing to learn, because I think we've all been raised on that bullshit pyramid of, you know, this is what is healthy for you and this is good, and you just have to really be able to advocate for yourself and inform yourself and take things with a grain of salt, you know. Like
the network, I think we're so lucky because there's so much good information out there. You know, it's like there's a lot of bad information out there too still, and it's being able to like filter through that when you're talking to other people who are conscious about wellness and really trying their best and trying to feed their kids right and trying to treat their kids right and trying to treat themselves right. You know?
Yeah, but same thing, like you're like moderation, you know, like have some grace. If you decide to eat a whole bag of pretzels that have Reese's peanut butter on them, like I did the other day, you have to have grace for yourself.
Totally.
You know, it's just not beating yourself up and not striving for perfection, because none of us are perfect.
Right. Yeah. Recognizing that journey to wellness is just that. It's a journey.
Yeah.
You know, I think like the 5-year stock market graph for Casey and Ashley's wellness, right? You zoom out, it looks really good. You zoom in, you're like, oh my God, what happened that week?
Yeah. I mean, my life's been, I really dove into like health and wellness and such maybe like 10 or 11 years ago. You know, I hopped on that Beachbody train.
Oh,
and
yeah.
did all that after I had my second kid.
Yeah.
And just really made it a lifestyle. That's what it becomes.
Yeah. And then I love that you know talked about the giving yourself grace, because I think so many people, you know, demonize, you know, certain foods, or, you know, if I didn't make it to the gym 5 times, you know, this week, then I'm a horrible person.
Right.
And then, you know, you touched on that kind of monkey mind, you know, that like we're all human doings at this point. Like so much has been forgotten about how to be a human being and being comfortable, you know, with that downtime without getting stuck on your digital leash, or, you know. Like,
it's true. It's totally true. And I think the downfall with cell phones too, it's like there's this abundance of information, but like it's depleting. You know, it's a little dopamine machine. And I think until people really recognize like, okay, this is actually dangerous if I'm not careful, that it's like it's a slippery slope.
It totally is. Yeah, I know. It's like our kids, you know, it's really hard to navigate those waters, because like there's the one school of thought that's like eliminate them completely, like, you know, flip phones, and then I feel like that's like the family that, you know, again, everything in moderation, food in moderation. So if you do try to keep your kids really strongly from that stuff, then the correction is often pretty rough when they come back. Yeah,
it is. It's definitely a weird dynamic raising kids with cell phones and social media.
Yeah, because you and I both grow up when, you know, you could do stupid stuff and not have it instantly on the internet.
Thank God, man. Right? I think about that. Like some of the stuff I did. Just grateful.
I know. I'm so proud of my kids. You know how they navigate that, or and then I'm also feel sad for them to have to be cognizant of that. You know, it's like you hear, and I think that again we're moving in the right direction, because like the cancel culture was like so big for so long, and then I follow like Alex Hormozy and some other content creators that do a lot of cool stuff, and you know, like you aren't canceled unless you choose to be canceled in large part, you know, like if you keep creating stuff with authenticity, like your people will find you. If you're super fake all the time, then I think that normally translates, and people see that.
And I think the intention behind, you know, creating or putting yourself out there on social media, you know, do it, like you said, with authenticity, and do it with a purpose, you know, do it for the greater good of, you know, whoever's consuming, because you are what you consume. And I think being mindful of that is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. That's so spot on. You know, it's like we talk about ketamine treatments, or, you know, look at like MDMA couples therapy, and like, you know, I make this comparison a lot, but it's like the sledgehammer in your tool shed, right? So like the little things like really add up, like having a date night a week, or, you know, spending time together where you aren't digitally connected, and like talking about your aspirations with one another, and, you know, like really remembering to be that person worth dating, right? Like what's good for Ashley is good for the universe, right? Like when you take care of yourself.
And I think, you know, as time goes on too with our society, it's like I feel like people are always looking for the next best thing. You know, it's like, oh, there's access to so many people, and you know, everyone's getting their highlight reel. And so you're like, you know, I see it all the time. And I look at people and I'm just like, man, if you could just like sit and be present and really, you know, number one, love yourself, like really invest in yourself, like get to know who you are, get a little routine for yourself, but then like also really invest in your partner, you know, get to know them, ask them questions, you know, immerse yourself a little bit in their world. But it has to, you know, you both have to do that because you're individuals,
right?
You know, and I think we forget like why we fell in love. We forget what drew us to each other in the first place, and always keeping that connection, like you said, and just don't falter on it. Keep those dates, keep those things. I don't give a if you're fighting, like whatever, just go and just be, you know, try and
especially with kids and like as you get older, like it's so hard to remember, you know, the love that created those children, especially when they're young and they're so, you know, like postpartum depression is a real thing for a lot of it. Like you lose that, like so many things about what you valued, you know, and the kids are awesome and we love them and they're amazing, and like that transition's really hard on a human being.
It is. I mean, the lack of sleep when you first have a child, and then I had twins, and I was just like, what the hell? Just the sleep deprivation, and then the hormone fluctuations. It's wild, you know. And I look back now, and it was like before I had done the ketamine, I was so checked out, you know, like I just wasn't like nothing. I was numb. It was just, it was awful.
Wow.
And so then now like being able to be in it and feel the joy of being a parent is just, it's such a gift.
Ugh,
it really is. So I'm a huge proponent for ketamine therapy. Obviously everyone needs to do their due diligence and do their own research and really decide if it's for them. But man, I think it's something that every person I know personally would benefit from.
Yeah, there's definitely like a movement, I would say, I've seen it, where people are looking at it for, you know, again, we all have trauma, more for like human optimization component. And, you know, we're at that point at Revitalize where, you know, we're able, any ketamine treatment that we're using is off-label usage. So we've always got to discuss the, you know, relevance and safety profile. And that being said, you know, ketamine's on the World Health Organization's list of essential medications as an anesthetic because it's so dang safe. You know, like you can give really high doses intramuscularly all at once and people, you know, hold their respiratory drive. It's the only anesthetic that actually increases cardiovascular function.
It's amazing.
So, and it's the only widely legal ego dissolution agent.
Which is huge. And like, you know, the thing with ego is it's one of those things that I don't think all of us realize. Like, we don't recognize our own ego. We don't, you know, you can't see what's really going on inside of there. And the ketamine therapy, it just kind of makes that all crumble. It takes away those walls. It brings the walls down. I think it allows you to clearly see yourself and just kind of the world around you. I know every single ketamine session I've ever done, the root or the base of it is just love. You know, it's just keeping your heart open and truly just loving. I love that. It's speaking of love, you know, I had a client say it once really well, and it always resonated with me. It's like, we're born remembering, and then we forget along the way, and our job is to remember again. Just being able to just like see that and feel that love and be safe in that love, because I think all of ego is designed to safely feel love. You know, like, so if your caregivers weren't present enough, or, you know, like for some reason you got more love when you're numbed out, then you might want to drink more or use more substances. I also, at one point that you touched on that I really wanted to kind of touch on is like, a lot of people are kind of chasing things, you know, and so they think like, oh, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and do this and do that. And so you'll see that when people come to me for the ketamine treatments, they're like, oh, hey, what do you think of ayahuasca? What do you think of, you know, microdosing psilocybin? What do you think of ibogaine? And it's like honestly, they all work the same, you know? And so, and
and like this isn't great for business. So I tell people no one needs any of them.
No.
You know, it's like really always within you.
Right.
It's about being able to get there, and there's lots of ways to get there, and there's no silver bullet. There's like a million silver BBs, right?
Right. And I think too, you know, like I've done several sessions of ketamine, and unless you're really processing what's coming up, it's not, you're not going to get that key. You're not going to get through that little gateway, you know, and you are always going to be searching for something else. And so, you know, journaling has been really good for me post ketamine treatment. Just doing talk therapy has been good to kind of really process what's coming up and what you're feeling. There was one session that, you know, it came up and it was just like suffering. A lot of us are suffering, right? And that's why we're seeking help, is through the suffering. And it came to me and it was like, you can't choose your suffering, right? Like a lot of times we can't choose the things that happen to us. However, you can choose, you know, how you handle that suffering. And it's just like all about taking your power back and knowing, you know, like you do have the power and you can make these changes regardless.
I love that. Yeah, taking the power back. Like that's how I love to do it. Like the empowerment, you know. That's why we do the intrinsic response methodology, where we pride ourselves on that setting and sustainability. And you touched on that huge point. Like it's, you know, all the latest evidence points towards much less important what actually happens during the ketamine treatment and much more important what you do afterwards.
Right. It's that reintegration and just taking, you know, what you felt and experienced and processed and applying it to your daily life. You know, that's the application of it is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. The integration, like we're always integrating, right? And so like the integration is like movement, you know, and dance. The integration is artwork and singing. The integration is like a big hug with someone you care about. You know, the integration is journaling. The integration is talk therapy. The integration is like just living, you know, your best life, like living sacredly and using it as that catalyst for change. Like ego dissolution agents have been around since, you know, evolutionarily. Like we don't know this. Stone Age theory is super interested in stuff where there's like the theory of part of the key of evolution was some species of ape found a psilocybin included mushroom and took that and then started thinking differently. So it's a very interesting theory. And that means like the immortality key, the secret history of the religion with no name. That's a really interesting book and talks about how far back as like 12,000 BC, like we've been using these on average about quarterly. And I think that's where, you know, some people really benefit to hear is that we do need those resets, you know, with that trauma, like the 4 types of trauma. I talk about them a lot, but there's your own historical, all the stress you've had since, you know, your parents' 2 zygotes first met. There's a lot, right? And then the second type is that epigenetic or intergenerational. There's definitely a number of studies pointing to at least 5 generations back, and there's another couple studies that point to like 17 generations. So wild. The third type of trauma, and that's what pushes, I think, people back through our doors more than anything, is that societal trauma. You know,
100%.
It's just that you know, creating those conditions to make you more likely to succeed are super important, and that's why we're here today. You know, we're talking about more ways that we can help other people help themselves. You know, because it's really like I've found out in healthcare, like you can't carry people over the finish line. It's burnout city for us, and it's really not that helpful for people. If you give them the tools and you help them remember that they're capable of that, that's when we like get like your outcome, like you said, like it saved your life.
100%.
Love that.
No, life changing. And I think, you know, people are scared to talk about how they're really feeling. There, you know, there's that shame spiral or that embarrassment, and there's this fear that they're going to be judged if, you know, they talk about, hey, I'm not happy, you know, I'm depressed. The suicide ideation, you know, it's like, well, what's wrong with you that you don't want to live, or it's selfish. And man, it's some real shit. Like it is awful. I have been there. I have not wanted to live. And it's scary. You know, and you do isolate more. And I think we need to take that stigma away and really open more conversation openly, you know, because people are like, oh, Ashley, like, you're so confident, you're so this, like, you seem so happy. But it's like, no, man, like, I have been so dark inside of myself that, like, I mean, in 2020, I tried to kill myself.
Wow.
You know, like, I was so close. I was hospitalized. It's not something that I've shared openly, but it's been 4 years, and it's like, why have I not talked about this? Like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah,
we should talk about it.
we
Because
should.
maybe if I open up and I say, hey, like, yeah, my life may have looked perfect and this, and this, but like, this is where I was and this is why. And just everyone know that they're not alone. And just, I hope my story will help others to kind of step forward and get help, because I've lost several friends, you know, that I wish would have just spoken up. And I think maybe I should have shared sooner, you know, maybe if they could hear. But, you know, we all have our own battles, and I think it's just really recognizing that it's okay to ask for help.
And yeah, talk about it, you know, because like there's a lot of people, like you said, that are struggling, that don't know who to talk to, they're just tamping it down further, and then when it comes out, it comes out more aggressively like that. And thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate you.
I'm glad I'm here. You know,
I'm really glad you're here in all the ways. Like,
definitely,
we're having fun together. You know, you got a beautiful family.
Thank you.
And they all love you and care about you, and I see that in you for them. And you know, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, like on the bottom is that safety and security. Some people never get past that. And honestly, like, it can be unsafe to do these treatments if you're not safe, you know, because like, put you back in that traumatizing environment after helping you reduce that coping style is not the move. But then on the top, you know, is that self-actualization. I like to flip that pyramid after that. And then really after that, like, the first step is true love for yourself. Once you truly love yourself, then you go to the next step, which is like really loving the people in your life. And until you love yourself, like, my argument would be that you really can't completely. And then after that, like, I would say that you love everything and everyone for everything. You know, like those people that are just upset all the time. You're like, oh, I still love you because you're just doing your best.
Totally. No, love, man. I'm telling you, love is, it's like, sounds so cliche, but just genuine love of yourself. If you can have that, you're going to radiate it to everyone around you. And I know a lot of people struggle to love themselves. I've struggled, you know, but I think it's just like looking in the mirror and being like, this is me. Like, this is me. If the flaws, the scars, the stretch marks, the tattoos, you know, the whatever, like, and just really like looking at yourself and loving you, you know, and realizing that, you know, we've all made mistakes. None of our lives are perfect. And I think once you truly recognize that, like, the past will never be better, you can never change the past, right? The past is the past. Once you recognize that your past will never be any better, that's where the true, like, healing starts. And that's how it was for me, you know, with the trauma and the things that I experienced and had happened to me. Until I finally accepted, like, that's never gonna change, I couldn't move forward. And then once I did, I was like, yeah, you know, shit, you're right. Like, this isn't gonna change. But the future can change.
Absolutely.
So,
And your perception for right now. And so that's awesome. No, you've done some incredible work for yourself. And really, really thankful to have been part of it.
No, I just love what you guys are doing, and I'm so full of gratitude. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing for the community here in Flagstaff, and you're expanding it throughout Arizona, and it's amazing. You are a genius, and you know what you guys are putting together, I think is going to be really life-changing for so many people.
Oh, thank you so much, Ashley. I really appreciate you and saying all that. I think that's where some people are getting in trouble, is like that, like, you get that inflated ego, you know, and you're the healer. And I'm really try to be very cognizant in how I train my staff and how I hold myself, is like, I'm not the healer, right? Like, I'm just turning that key and getting out of the way so you can remember how capable you are. And I think that's super important. And, you know, having the book, the integration book that we created, and you got a most recent copy of that, and where it talks about, you know, how to use these treatments, how to do that integration work, how to work through those past emotions. Because, like, it's so interesting. Like, we're just scratching the surface on so much cool science right now. It's such an exciting time to be in medicine. we're holding these like what we're calling neuro-emotional complexes,
Yeah.
these inflammatory corticoid clusters that are tied to past emotionality, you know, that wasn't safe to feel at a certain time. And we hold it in our connective tissue. We hold it like in our like there's more neurotransmitters in our, you know, our gut than there are in our brain.
I know, it's
And
wild.
yeah, it's really interesting, all the neurochemistry behind it. And being able to clear those out, being able to work through those is healing intergenerational
It
trauma.
is. I mean, your body, there's that book, The Body Keeps Score, and it's really true that your body holds on to so much. It's wild. But you guys, you are like, you provide the safe container to do the work, which is amazing. And then, you know, not just the ketamine, but all of the additional stuff that you're doing, you know, with the somatic work and the yoga and the ecstatic dance and just all of it. It's just, you know, one big ball of goodness. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a Rocked is, you know, kind of born out of is like, yeah, we can do ketamine treatments here. And we can revitalize and optimize and harmonize and do the cold plunge and the sauna and the hug flower and the integration therapy and, you know, just being in a space that's, you know, held by other people that are also trying to become slightly better versions of themselves is it's so rewarding. You know, we're doing the work in progress group now, which is pretty fun venture. It's like mirrors a lot of like the AA kind of where there's step work and there's instead of a sponsor and a sponsee, there's a mentor and a mentee. And so like after showing up for yourself for 90 days, you can be put in a mentor pool where you'll be kind of paired
Very
with
cool.
And so like and shared with similar demographics, you know, so like someone else who maybe shared some of your same plights or can identify with some of, you know, what you're doing and then without ownership of an illness, right? Like so like we're all works in progress. We know that.
Totally. Forever.
Ideally, and embracing that, you know, like it's fun. It's like fun to be a human when you can, you know, like stuck in any one emotion is not great for us, you know, even if it's joy, because then that means you're pushing those other things away. I love that Inside Out movie. It's
so good. It is.
So you talked about some of the things that you've done to take care of yourself. You talked about some of the things that you're up to now. What are the things that you're most excited for?
I think I'm most excited just to kind of keep progressing with our real estate business, continuing to just better myself. You know, I've really come to truly love myself the last, you know, really it's been like the last 6 months has been like, you know, a game changer for me. Not that I didn't love myself before, but just on a deeper level. And so, you know, having this toolbox that I have and being able to kind of use those things and teach my children, you know, and watch them grow and thrive, you know, better than I did is kind of what I'm hoping for. And I'm looking forward to snowboard season to being in full effect. Let's get some snow.
Some fresh powder would be fun.
Some fresh powder would be good. And just, you know, really diving into more community work too. I think that's something that I really enjoy, and being able to help people find their home in our community.
Cool.
And just kind of, you know, maybe getting a little bit more into this wellness realm again.
I'd love to have you over here.
My heart is
that'd be
within
super
this.
cool.
So,
I want to start, like, I can't facilitate obviously, but like a women's group and a men's group and the sound healing. And so, a lot of the cool stuff that you're doing down in the valley, you know, before you came up here, we'd love to pull more of that rad energy.
No, I'd love that. Yeah. Do some chakra work and just, I would love that.
Yeah. Let's do it.
It's coming soon.
Right. Get excited, everybody. Woo! I'm excited.
That'll be good.
Cool. Well, any, you know, things you want to talk about? Any closing remarks or whatever?
I just, you know, I hope that people get a little something out of my story. It's always nerve-wracking to share those parts and be vulnerable, but just don't be afraid to speak up and to reach out, and just know that you have a community here. I'm always open to, you know, talk or answer questions. And I know that Casey is here, you know, to help as well. So
I love that you touched on that, and you were so like open and vulnerable in your sharing, because unfortunately, people aren't open about that, and people have these internal struggles, and I think a lot more people are having them than conversations that are being had, and that's what is unfortunate, because people are struggling, and I would say somewhat needlessly so. If we can open up dialogue more readily, and normalize it. Like, I've struggled with suicidality myself, like when I was a teenager and young adult, like that impulsivity, I think, of being a young male is like scary, and like you have these breakups, or you have this like seemingly like terrible, horrible, atrocious thing happening to you at the time that feels like the weight of the world is like like unsustainable, and I've had my own trauma and like self-medicated, and so it's important to recognize that, like, you think these people are perfect, or like I think of yourself, like you always have presented yourself very well, and to know that you weren't in that great of a headspace isn't something that most people would have been tuned into, and so there's other people out there, like, and I like you, and I think we've had some of the same friends that have taken their own lives, wherein there was, if we normalize the conversation more, like we're doing right now, and make it like, hey, like, you're struggling, well, let's go freaking hang out, let's go for a hike, like, I don't want to just talk to you on the phone and be like, hey, don't kill yourself, and go check in and see a doc. It's like, I worked in inpatient units, like I worked at Flagstaff Medical Center's behavioral health unit, I've worked at the guidance center's inpatient unit, and we've seen a lot of people for suicidality there. And like what we do, we start them on a medication, and then basically we're just waiting for the storm to blow over, because 90% of the time it's like the straw that broke the camel's back,
situational, or
and so like recognition of that, and recognition of, hey, like, people are out there struggling, and there's resources available to you that are more readily available than you think they are, and legitimate help, not just like a pill for every problem. Like, I'm so sick of that, like anytime I talk about the ketamine, like, as much in Western medicine, I like to keep it sacred, right, and that we're doing this on purpose, and so with that, we don't want to just give ketamine to just give ketamine, right? Like, we want to have an intention. We help people set an intention at our clinic. We help people with their flight instructions. We help them with navigating what ego dissolution is, because those walls were built on purpose, right?
Totally.
And again, like, I think where people get in trouble is where they judge those walls. Like, they're like, oh, that anxious Casey, he's a bad person, I don't like him, and he should go away forever. So that anxious Casey is help me get here, help me overcome like a lot of the crud that I dealt with, whatever, and now, like, say thank you, me. I appreciate you.
It's finding grace and love for every part of ourselves, because we are made up of a multitude of pieces, ultimately, and I think just really being able to kind of see each person or piece for what they are, and have gratitude for that, and choose to bring those pieces that we love with us, and leave the ones that we don't behind. And I think just taking those steps to open that door and say, hey, I want to make these changes. I don't know where to start, or I don't even know what's wrong. And I think a lot of times we don't even know what we're feeling, and just being able to kind of talk about that and navigate that, just keep the conversations going, because sometimes I think people think, oh, well, my problems are so insignificant and dumb, why? But it's like, no, because everyone's different. Everyone's trauma is different. I had a therapist tell me once that, one person's worst trauma could have been that they saw a squirrel get hit by a car, right? But then someone else might have watched a loved one be killed. Those are two very different forms of trauma, but each person doesn't know that, Trauma is experienced
100%. So subjective. The subjectivity to trauma is so important, and I think as our society, we don't give enough weight to that, so people feel invalidated. They're like, well, I shouldn't have trauma, like, and so they don't let themselves feel those feelings. They don't let themselves process those feelings because they're already like invalidating themselves, really.
Which is awful. You know, I've been in therapy groups where like I've shared some pretty gnarly things, and then other people were like, well, I feel dumb now. Like, I don't want to share. And I had to, you know, say that same example. And I'm like, don't feel dumb. You know, like, I wish I didn't experience these things. But like, that doesn't make your trauma or your experience any less real to you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And how you carry that, you know? And so it's like giving that weight it deserves. Yeah. And how, like, I always think intelligence and empathy is a deadly combination, right? Because like you understand like kind of the weight of the world, and then you know those 4 types of trauma, like the environmental and the societal, like we're all taking that on, you know, and we're all working together, like here now to try to help heal that collective consciousness, that kind of like what's good for Ashley is good for the universe. When you're actually feeling good about yourself and how you fit in. Like you can go to the grocery store, you can smile at a stranger and quite literally like save a life, you know, like someone gets like that random act of kindness that they haven't, you know, experienced in so long. They're like, what? Like I deserve to be smiled at? Like this is amazing. Yeah, it's true. Know? So really thanks for everything you're doing for yourself and the universe at large and Flagstaff and you and Jason, like you guys, like I see your mailers in the mail and
they're so cheesy. I love it. Love it.
I have one of those cards. It's like a coaster card, and everyone makes fun of me as like my realtor pose. I'm like, realtor pose really well.
It's good stuff, right? Yeah.
Totally.
No, I just, you know, Flagstaff's my home. It's my hometown. I had a love-hate relationship with it for a little bit. I think we all kind of do at times. But it feels good to be home. I've been here for 2 years again, and you know that boomerang effect, it brought me back. So I'm just looking forward, to like diving into our community a little bit more, and just loving life.
Yay! We'll see you up on the mountain, and we'll see you in here, and we'll see you around. And Flagstaff's lucky to have you guys. I'm excited for you and your kids and every life that you touch. Like people are lucky to be, you know, close to you.
Thank you.
And that, you know, you've done your work, and it is work, right?
It is work. It is work. And I think a part of that too is just like recognizing that not everyone deserves access to you, you know, as an empath and just someone that is very self-aware, and I am truly like loving. It's tough because you have to protect yourself too.
For sure. Especially when you're in the limelight, you know, people will think that you're always accessible, or you know, try to like message you or DM you, and you're like, hey, like I provide a service. If you want that service, you know, like please reach out. Also, like I love that a Brene Brown book, the Rising Strong. She talks about living big as an acronym. And so like B is boundaries, like what's okay to be treated like and what's not. I is coming out with integrity, knowing that you want the best for yourself and everyone really. And then G is being generous of your expectations, where other people are coming from with their own trauma. That being said, you shouldn't let your own boundaries down.
Totally. For sure.
So, you're doing great stuff, Ashley. It's really cool. Really appreciate you taking the extra time out of your day. I know you're getting like babysitters and stuff to get here.
That's all right. This is a really good opportunity for me. You know, I do not like being in front of the camera. It is not my strong point. But I feel really passionate about mental health, and I just want to provide whatever I can to kind of help the collective.
Well, you sharing your story so, you know, raw and viscerally today, I think is like amazing and beautiful, and you know, everyone's going to benefit from that.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you, and I know everyone else does. So thanks, Ashley.
No problem. Thank you, Casey. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, it wasn't recording. We do it again.
Like sweating.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned for more.